What will be the next move of Ben Hunt at the St George Illawarra Dragons? Will he be there much longer? Let's bring the journos straight in. Buzz Rothfield and Brent Reid. Now, before we go anywhere, he just brought the Roosters into play. We'll get there soon. But how did this all play out? Over the weekend, Ben Hunt asking for an immediate release. We just heard from Hoops, who had some strong information. What have you two heard?
Well, what happened, this has been around for 10 weeks, that he was unhappy, and he said that himself. If Anthony Griffin goes, he'd have to weigh up his future. The story gathered momentum and broke on Saturday afternoon that Ben Hunt officially wanted out from St George Illawarra. He then sent me a text message on Sunday morning at 7:10 and confirmed it, which I found really surprising that he'd go public with it so early, you know, into an Origin camp. And and if he wasn't serious about it, there's no way he would have confirmed it. His manager then said he was worn down by management, as Hoops just spoke about. He's over Ryan Sutton and Ryan Webb, and he's over Ben Harron, and he just wants out.
Well, he's been the face of the whole saga, hasn't he, Ben Hunt? I mean, he's always, that's the one thing you always admire about Ben Hunt.
The face of
he
what
always
saga?
Fronts up the coaching saga, everything that was unfolding there, the Anthony Griffin situation, the pursuit of Jason Rolls. He was the bloke who always fronted up, had to answer the questions. That's got to wear you down, right? And it's clearly worn Ben down. And he's obviously had his head turned by other clubs. I mean, that's pretty obvious, right? That other clubs are sniffing around him and have made their interests pretty well known. So that's where things get a little murky for me.
Gordy, how do you see this? Do you agree with Ben Hunt's stance on this, or what's your take?
With both, right? So Ben Hunt, right at the beginning of the year, he asked the club, "Can you support us and the coach?" I remember that. They didn't turn up to his 300th, the presentation. I think he has probably carried a lot for this club, but he deserves to. He's the highest paid player. That comes with the territory. And with the Dragons, well, it's been a basket case off the field. From what we can see, there's been no leadership. And if I've got my star player making rumblings for 10 weeks, as you said, Buzz, you have to fix that problem.
He said all along that...
But you have to fix that problem as soon...
He said that if Griffin goes, I don't want to start another rebuild at that club. He's on the record saying that 10 weeks ago.
But did Shane Flanagan know that Ben Hunt wanted out before he took the job?
Well, Cole Davis, his manager, said he rang Ben Harron 2 weeks ago and said he wanted out. I would suggest St George had quietly told Flanagan he's got the job, but there's a problem with the player. You better go and meet Ben Hunt.
It's Flano's baby now. Flano's got to try and find a way to convince Ben Hunt to stay. I mean, it's got a hell of a job in front of him, but that's got to be his priority. I know he's met with
Hasn't he already tried?
Well, he's met with some other players already, but Ben's obviously an Origin. He spoke to him, but that was before he had the job. Now he's got the job. You know, his first order of business, as soon as Ben Hunt gets out of Origin camp, he needs to sit down with him, convince him that he's the bloke.
Is it too late, though?
But yeah, what I'm going to say, he's probably happy with Shane Flanagan being a coach, but is he going to be happy? And his manager made it clear he's worn down by the current management and all the stuff-ups and the bungled Jason Riles talks. As 3 players turn up to a presentation night, they brushed his 300. So you could put Wayne Bennett in there, you could put Gus in there, you put any coach in there, but he's still got a problem with management.
All right, Dragon CEO Ryan Webb fronted the media today and was adamant the club wouldn't be letting their star halfback leave.
Do you see any scenario in which you would grant Ben Hunt a release?
Not at this stage. We had some initial discussions kind of more around winning and the want to win. They've been bubbling for a couple of weeks now, and we understood those. I think there's a couple of other pieces that he wants to talk about, but we haven't had the chance to sit with him face-to-face and talk those through, maybe with myself and Shane Flanagan as well. So we hope that in the coming days, weeks, we can do that, sit down face-to-face and get a bit of understanding of where it's coming from, and then we can address those, and that's how I think we might be able to turn him around.
OK, is Webb delusional here, thinking that he's going to change the mind of Hunt? But also, I mean, on the Sunday ticket yesterday, he was on Triple M, Webb, and he said that he can guarantee the fans that Hunt's going to be there next year. Can he guarantee them?
Well, I don't think he can guarantee it. They've obviously he's got 2 years left on his contract, and their stance would be to dig in the heels. But if he doesn't want to be there and he decides he wants out, we know how this plays out. It's the same way it always plays out. The player goes. But I tell you what, if he goes, you want to get something for him. You want to get plenty for him. He's got 2 years left on a deal. It's worth about $1.7 million. So if it gets to the point where there's no future in it, and you decide, we're going to sever ties with Ben, if that happens, you want to either get some really good players out of it or a hell of a lot of money.
Are we ever going to see? 28 years ago, I sat out. at this club, I decided that I wanted to go play in Brisbane. It was a different circumstances, right? I was going to play in a rival competition.
Yeah.
Are we ever going to see a club and the game dig their heels in? So it stops
I
happening.
would say the other big difference with you, Gordy, is you were a lot younger than Ben at the time from memory. How old were you when you
I was
set out?
20, 21.
I'll tell you
Ben's
what I
33,
don't.
right?
I'll tell you
32.
what
You can't
I
afford to sit out
don't
a year.
feel's a lot different to Gordy's situation, is that Ben Hunt and his manager are so desperate to get out of there. There's talk that they'll offer St George financial compensation around the 150,000 mark. If my memory serves me correct, Gordy, were you in a similar position
I did exactly the same about round 7. Myself and my manager, George Mimas, we walked in the St George Leagues Club. David Waite was the coach. And I offered on my whole Super League contract. And they dug their heels. And that's what I want to say. For the fans, for the games, for the clubs, there's too much power with the players and the managers at the moment. Can we just get the clubs to actually, once you sign the deal, he knew that. It was going to be a rebuild with Anthony Griffin there or not, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Hey?
Yeah.
It was going to be the same struggle.
Yeah.
So the coach can't be the coach can't be the
But
excuse.
you know what annoys me about all this is that clubs are blatantly breaking the anti-tampering rules. And Ben Hunt would not have gone public and expressed such a desperate desire to walk out, not even go back after Origin, if he didn't have other options.
Do you think his manager's gone and asked clubs and knocked on doors? Or
I
he said,
thi-
oh, Ben, we're just going to walk
Come
away.
on, Gordy, we know he's knocked on doors. Canterbury have been very, very public, even though he's under contract.
He got a phone
Like
call.
Gus and Cameron Serrano.
His agent got a phone call over the weekend from the head of the NRL, the Agent Accreditation Committee, Paul Massey, and said to Cole Davis, just making you aware, reminding you cannot negotiate with teams for next season. And he said, can you tell Ben Hunt that as well and make sure Ben's aware of that?
But
so
don't
the
you-
NRL's keeping an eye on the situation, Buzz.
Keeping an eye on it, mate.
But Buzz, what
Keeping
can you
an
do?
eye on it.
What can you do? Like,
Do you
seriously, the
honestly
NRL's
think,
powerless in
guys,
this situation?
he'd be that determined to get out of there mid-season on $1 million contract if he didn't know there was 800 at Canterbury or 300
Without
this
a shadow of a doubt, Buzz.
Well, what's the game just...
I know. I don't know what to say to you. But, I mean, he's actually offering $150,000 to get out of there.
Which is, that's
unheard
if
of.
they take that, they should hang their heads in shame.
Exactly, but that shows the desire of him to get the hell out of there. That's how much he wants to leave. He's willing to give the club money. And you're right, Buzz, he'd have a few sitting there waiting for him. He's already had the Bulldogs there for a long time. We've known that. We've
Well, he met
reported
Gus late last year.
We've reported that on this show, but for a long period of time now.